The August heat pressed down on the New Mexico desert like a heavy blanket, making the air shimmer above the cracked earth. Jack Morrison wiped the sweat from his weathered forehead as he mended the fence line on his struggling cattle ranch. The Sky Mesa Ranch had been in his family for 3 generations. But now, at 42, Jack worked it alone. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional lowing of cattle and the whisper of wind through the sparse grass. His wife Sarah had left 2 years ago, taking their daughter Emma with her to Albuquerque. "This place is killing us slowly," she had said, her voice hollow with exhaustion. "The drought, the debt, the isolation. I can't watch you disappear into this land anymore." Jack understood her reasons, but understanding didn't fill the empty house or ease the weight of solitude that pressed on his shoulders like the relentless sun. Dark clouds began gathering on the western horizon, promising the first real storm. In weeks, Jack straightened up, feeling the electricity in the air make his skin tingle. Lightning flickered in the distance, still silent but growing closer. He needed to get the cattle to shelter before the storm hit. As he mounted his horse, Dakota, a flash of movement caught his eye near the old abandoned mining road. Someone was running, dancing in the open field, arms raised toward the approaching storm. Jack squinted through the heat haze and saw a young woman, maybe 16 or 17, with long black hair streaming behind her as she moved with fluid grace across the desert floor. "What the hell?" Jack muttered, spurring Dakota toward her. Girl seemed completely unaware of the approaching danger. Lightning was striking closer now, and the wind was picking up, carrying the scent of rain and ozone. As Jack rode closer, he could see her more clearly Native American features. Dressed in simple jeans and a faded blue shirt, her feet bare against the rough ground. "Hey," Jack called out, but she didn't seem to hear him over the rising wind. "You need to get inside. This storm's going to be dangerous." The girl finally turned toward him, and Jack felt his breath catch. Her eyes were the deepest brown he'd ever seen, holding a wisdom that seemed far beyond her years. There was no fear in them, only a wild joy that made Jack's heart skip. "The lightning speaks," she said simply, her voice carrying clearly, despite the wind. "I'm listening." "Listen from somewhere safe," Jack said, dismounting and walking toward her. "There's a shelter about a mile from here. Come on." She tilted her head, studying him with curious intensity. "You're the rancher, Jack Morrison. Your land borders the reservation." Jack nodded, surprised she knew him. "That's right. And you are Luna Begay," she said, then looked back at the storm. A brilliant fork of lightning split the sky, followed immediately by a crack of thunder that made Jack's ears ring. "I need to follow it." "Follow what?" "The storm. It's heading toward the old canyons, toward something lost." Luna's eyes met his again. "Something your family lost a long time ago." Before Jack could ask what she meant, the heavens opened. Rain came down in sheets, soaking them both in seconds. Luna laughed a sound like silver bells and started running toward the storm instead of away from it. "Are you crazy?" Jack shouted, but found himself following her. Leading Dakota through the downpour, Luna moved with an uncanny ability to navigate the suddenly treacherous terrain. She seemed to know exactly where every gopher hole and loose rock lay, dancing around obstacles that Jack could barely see through the rain. Lightning illuminated her figure in stark, beautiful silhouettes as she led them deeper into the desert. After what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, Luna stopped beside a cluster of red rocks that formed a natural shelter. She was breathing hard but still smiling, rainwater streaming down her face like tears of joy. "Here," she said, ducking under the rock overhang. Jack followed, grateful for the shelter. He tied Dakota's reins to a sturdy juniper bush and settled beside Luna, both of them dripping and breathless. "Why did you follow me?" Luna asked, wringing water from her long hair. Jack considered the question seriously. "I don't know," he admitted. "I've been alone on that ranch for 2 years, just going through the motions. Then I see you dancing in a lightning storm like it's the most natural thing in the world, and suddenly—" He paused, searching for words. "Suddenly I felt awake for the first time in years." Luna nodded, as if this made perfect sense. "My grandmother says lightning chooses who it wants to speak to. Maybe it chose both of us tonight. Your grandmother lives on the reservation. Did she pass last winter?" Luna's expression grew sad. "She used to tell me stories about this land, about the connections between families, white and native, that go back generations. Stories about things that were lost and need to be found again." Thunder rumbled overhead, but the lightning was moving away now, the storm following its inexorable path toward the eastern mountains. Jack found himself studying Luna's profile in the dim light, wondering what had brought this mysterious young woman into his path. You said something about my family losing something, Jack said carefully. Luna turned to face him fully. Your great-grandfather, Thomas Morrison. He worked with my great-great-grandfather during the silver mining days. They were partners, friends, but something happened, something that broke that friendship and left wounds that never healed. Jack frowned. He'd heard fragments of stories about Thomas Morrison, but his father had always been vague about the family's early days in New Mexico. What kind of something? A betrayal, Luna said softly, and a promise that was never kept. But my grandmother believed it could still be made right if the right people came together. The rain was beginning to let up, but neither of them moved to leave their shelter. Jack felt as if he was on the edge of discovering something important, not just about his family's history, but about himself. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Luna smiled, and Jack felt something shift in his chest, a warmth he hadn't experienced since Sarah left. Because the lightning brought us together. Because you followed me into the storm instead of trying to drag me out of it. Because I think you're ready to hear the truth. As the last of the thunder faded into the distance, Jack realized that his life had just taken an unexpected turn. This strange, beautiful young woman had appeared like magic in his world of isolation and routine, bringing with her hints of mystery and connection that made his heart race with possibility. Will you come back to the ranch with me? Jack asked. Just until the roads dry out. I can drive you home in the morning. Luna considered this, her dark eyes reflecting the last flickers of distant lightning. All right, she said finally. But I have conditions, such as, tomorrow, you let me show you what your great-grandfather lost. And you really listen to what I have to tell you. Jack nodded, knowing he was agreeing to more than just a conversation. He was agreeing to open doors in his life that had been locked for years. To trust this remarkable young woman, who had literally danced into his world on the wings of a storm, as they prepared to ride back to the ranch. Jack caught Luna looking up at the clearing sky, with an expression of deep satisfaction. The storm did what it came to do, she said mysteriously. Jack didn't ask what she meant. He was beginning to understand that Luna Beged spoke in a language deeper than words, a language of intuition and ancient wisdom that he was only just beginning to learn. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Both of them lost in thought, as Dakota picked his way carefully through the muddy terrain. Jack's house came into view, as the clouds parted to reveal a brilliant canopy of stars. And for the first time in 2 years, he didn't feel the familiar pang of loneliness at the sight of his empty home. Luna was here, and somehow that changed everything. Echoes of the past. Jack woke before dawn, as he had every day for the past 20 years. But this morning felt different. The sound of quiet movement in his kitchen reminded him that he wasn't alone. Luna was here, and the events of the previous night hadn't been a dream. He found her standing at the window, watching the sunrise paint the desert in shades of gold and crimson. She'd borrowed one of his old flannel shirts over her clothes, and her long hair was braided down her back. Coffee was already brewing, filling the kitchen with its rich aroma. I hope you don't mind, Luna said without turning round. I found the coffee in your pantry. Not at all. Jack moved to stand beside her at the window. Did you sleep okay? The guest room bed isn't much, ... I slept outside, Luna said matter-of-factly. On your porch. I wanted to feel the land. Jack studied her profile, noting the way the morning light caught the copper highlights in her hair. Feel the land. Every place has its own heartbeat, Luna explained, finally turning to meet his eyes. Your ranch, ... It's tired, Jack. It's been carrying a heavy burden for a long time. Before Jack could ask what she meant, Luna moved to the coffee pot and poured 2 cups. She handed him one, her fingers briefly touching his, in the exchange. The simple contact sent an unexpected jolt through him. Are you ready to hear the story? Luna asked. Jack nodded. Settling at his kitchen table, the same table where his family had eaten meals for 3 generations. Luna sat across from him, cradling her coffee cup like a ritual chalice. It started in 1889, Luna began, her voice taking on the cadence of a traditional storyteller. Your great-grandfather, Thomas Morrison, came to New Mexico with big dreams and empty pockets. The silver boom was just beginning, and he'd heard there were fortunes to be made in these mountains. Jack listened intently, picturing the young man who would become his ancestor. Thomas met my great-great-grandfather, Joseph Begay, at a trading post in what's now Silver City. Joseph knew these lands better than anyone, where to find water, which paths were safe, where the earth held its treasures. Thomas needed that knowledge, and Joseph needed someone who could navigate the white man's legal system. Luna paused to sip her coffee, her dark eyes distant, as if she could see the events unfolding across time. They became partners. Not just in business, but in friendship. Joseph taught Thomas to read the signs in the rocks and clouds. Thomas helped Joseph file proper claims and navigate the territorial government. For 5 years, they worked together, pulling silver from the mountains and building something beautiful, a partnership that bridged two worlds. What happened? Jack asked, though he sensed the story was heading toward tragedy. They found something, Luna said quietly. Not just silver, something much more valuable. A vein of ore so pure and extensive that it could have made both families wealthy for generations. They called it the Lightning Strike Mine because they discovered it during a thunderstorm, just like last night. Jack felt a chill despite the warmth of the coffee. Where was this mine? In the canyon system east of here. Joseph knew sacred places that shouldn't be disturbed, so they were careful to mine only where it was appropriate. They drew up papers, official partnership documents, splitting everything 50-50. Luna's expression grew troubled. But then the land grab started. The government was pushing harder to move native families onto smaller reservations. There was pressure, threats. Some white settlers were getting violent, claiming that Indians couldn't own mining claims. And Jack prompted, though he was beginning to guess where this was heading. Thomas got scared. Luna said simply. Not of danger, wasn't a coward. But he was afraid of losing everything he'd worked for. Some powerful men in Santa Fe offered him protection, legal legitimacy, if he'd transfer the mine claims to his name only. They convinced him it was temporary just until the political situation settled down. Jack's stomach sank. He betrayed Joseph. Thomas signed papers that erased Joseph's name from all the mining claims. He told himself it was temporary, that he'd make it right once things calmed down. But Joseph was forced to move his family to the reservation, and communication became difficult. Years passed. Thomas got older, more set in his ways, more convinced that what he'd done was necessary. Luna stood up and walked back to the window. Joseph never saw a penny from the Lightning Strike Mine. He died in 1903, still believing his friend would honor their partnership. Thomas became wealthy, built this ranch, raised a family, but he never made it right. Jack felt a weight settling in his chest. Not just guilt, but understanding. That's why the ranch feels burdened. My grandmother believed that some debts pass down through generations until they're paid, Luna said. The Morrison family has been carrying the weight of that broken promise ever since. And my family has been carrying the pain of that betrayal. Jack thought about his father, who'd struggled to keep the ranch profitable, despite its prime location and good water rights. About his own struggles, the way the land seemed to resist every effort he made to improve it. About Sarah's observation that the place was slowly killing him. The mine, Jack said slowly. Is it still there? Luna turned back to him, her eyes bright with something that might have been hope. The entrance was sealed decades ago, but the silver is still there, Jack. And more importantly, the papers, the original partnership documents, are still there too. Jack stared at her. How do you know that? Because my grandmother told me where Thomas hid them. He couldn't bring himself to destroy the evidence of his betrayal, so he sealed the documents in a metal box inside the mine before closing it up. Joseph had told him that the spirits of the place would keep important things safe until the right time came to retrieve them. The kitchen fell silent, except for the ticking of the old wall clock. Jack's mind was racing, trying to process the implications of what Luna was telling him. You want me to reopen the mine? He said finally. I want you to honor your great-grandfather's original promise, Luna corrected. The mine belongs to both our families, Jack. It always has. Jack stood up and began pacing, his coffee forgotten. Even if what you're saying is true, even if we could find this mine and these documents. Luna, I'm barely keeping this ranch afloat as it is. I couldn't afford the legal fees, the environmental permits, the equipment. What if I told you that the Lightning Strike Mine contains enough silver to solve both our families' problems? Luna said quietly. Enough to save your ranch, to give my family resources to build something meaningful on the reservation. Jack stopped pacing and looked at her. Really looked at her. This young woman who had appeared in his life like a force of nature, who spoke of ancient debts and hidden treasures with the certainty of someone who had seen proof. Why should I trust you? He asked, not unkindly. Luna smiled, the same joyous expression she'd worn while dancing in the lightning. Because you already do. You followed me into that storm last night, without knowing why. You brought me to your home, shared your coffee, listened to my story. Trust isn't always a rational decision, Jack. Sometimes it's a recognition. She was right, and Jack knew it. Something about Luna called to him on a level deeper than logic. Maybe it was the way she moved through the world with such confidence and grace. Maybe it was the depth of wisdom in her young eyes. Or maybe it was simply that she had awakened something in him that had been sleeping for too long. "Show me," Jack said finally. "Show me this mine." Luna's smile grew radiant. "The storm last night had cleared the old trail that's been blocked for years. The way is open now, but only for a short time before the desert reclaims it. Today now," Luna said. "The land is ready to share its secrets, but timing matters. Some doors only open when the conditions are exactly right." Jack looked around his kitchen, at the life he'd been living in careful, lonely routine. Then he looked at Luna, who represented possibility and adventure, and the chance to heal old wounds. "All right," he said. "Let's go find your lightning strike mine." As they prepared to leave, Luna caught his arm gently. "Jack," she said seriously, "this journey, it's going to change everything. For both of us. Are you ready for that?" Jack thought about Sarah's words when she left. "You've been disappearing into this land. Maybe it was time to stop disappearing, and start discovering what the land had been trying to tell him all along." "I'm ready," he said, and meant it. The morning sun climbed higher as they saddled up, casting long shadows across the desert floor. Jack had the strangest feeling that he was embarking on more than just a treasure hunt. He was walking toward a destiny that had been waiting for him his entire life. The lightning strike, the trail that Luna led them along, seemed to have been carved from the landscape by the previous night's storm. Rocks had been shifted, debris cleared, and what must have been decades of accumulated sand and brush had been washed away to reveal an ancient path winding through the red rock canyons. Jack followed. Luna on horseback through terrain he'd thought he knew by heart. After 42 years on this land, he was discovering passages and formations he'd never seen before. Luna rode with the confidence of someone following a well-memorized map, turning left at seemingly random rock formations, and following washes that all looked identical to Jack's untrained eye. "How do you know this way?" Jack called out as they navigated a particularly narrow passage between towering canyon walls. "My grandmother brought me here when I was 12, Luna replied without slowing. "She said I needed to see where the old friendship lived, so I'd know what we were trying to heal." The sun climbed higher, and the desert began to shimmer with heat. But here in the canyon system, the air stayed cool and sweet, carrying the scent of sage and the lingering moisture from last night's rain. Jack found himself relaxing into the rhythm of the ride, letting Dakota pick his way carefully over the rocky terrain. After 2 hours of riding, Luna stopped at what appeared to be a dead-end, circular canyon with walls rising nearly vertical on all sides. The space was maybe 50 yards across, with a sandy floor dotted with ancient juniper trees. "Here," Luna said, dismounting and tying her borrowed horse to a sturdy branch. Jack looked around skeptically. "I don't see any mine entrance." Luna smiled and walked toward the far wall of the canyon. "My grandmother said Thomas was clever. He didn't just seal the mine, he disguised it." She ran her hands along the rock face, feeling for something Jack couldn't see. "The entrance looks like natural formation unless you know exactly where to look." She found what she was searching for and pressed her palm against a section of rock that looked no different from any other to Jack's eyes. There was a grinding sound, and a portion of the canyon wall shifted inward, revealing a dark opening just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Jack stared in amazement. "How is that possible?" "Thomas was a mining engineer before he came west," Luna explained. "He knew how to work with natural rock formations. This is probably a natural cave that he expanded and then camouflaged." Jack approached the opening cautiously. Cool air flowed from the darkness, carrying the scent of minerals and deep earth. "Do you have a flashlight?" Luna pulled a small LED light from her pocket. "My grandmother always said to come prepared." She paused at the entrance, her expression growing serious. "Jack, before we go in, I need you to understand something. What we're about to do, it's not just about finding silver or documents. It's about healing something that's been broken for over a century." "I understand," Jack said, and realized he truly did. This wasn't treasure hunting. It was reconciliation. Luna nodded and stepped into the darkness. Jack followed, feeling the temperature drop as they moved deeper into the earth. The tunnel was surprisingly well constructed, with timber supports and a relatively smooth floor. Jack could see evidence of Thomas Morrison's engineering skill in the careful way the passage had been carved to follow the natural grain of the rock. After about 50 yards, The tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Luna's flashlight beam revealed the ghostly remnants of mining equipment, trusted pickaxes, a broken cart, lengths of rotted rope. But what caught Jack's attention were the walls. Veins of silver ran through the rock like lightning frozen in stone, gleaming in the LED's glow with an almost ethereal beauty. Jack had seen plenty of ore samples in his life, but nothing like this. The purity and extent of the deposits were breathtaking. "My God," Jack whispered. "This would have made them millionaires." "It still could," Luna said quietly. "But first, ... She moved to the far end of the chamber, where the tunnel continued, deeper into the mountain. Here, the passage had been deliberately sealed with carefully fitted stones. Luna began examining the barrier, running her hands along the joints between the rocks. "Help me move these," she said, finding a loose stone near the top of the seal. Working together, they carefully dismantled the barrier. It was clear that whoever had built it, presumably had designed it to be reopened. The stones came away easily, once they found the right sequence. Behind the barrier was a smaller chamber, maybe 10 feet square. Luna's light revealed something that made Jack's breath catch, a metal strongbox sitting on a natural stone shelf, as if it had been waiting patiently for over a century. Luna approached the box reverently. It was old, but well preserved in the dry cave air, with brass fittings that had turned green with age. She looked at Jack, seeking permission. "Together," Jack said. They lifted the box down from its shelf. It was heavier than Jack had expected, and there was the sound of objects shifting inside. Luna found the catch's simple latch that clicked open easily. Inside, wrapped in oiled leather that had kept them remarkably well preserved, were documents. Luna carefully lifted out the top packet and unwrapped it. Even in the lead's harsh light, Jack could see the elegant handwriting of another era. "Partnership agreement," Luna read aloud, "between Thomas Morrison and Joseph Begay, for the joint ownership and operation of the Lightning Strike mine. Established this day, June 15, 1892. She looked up at Jack with shining eyes. 50-50 ownership, just like I told you." Jack reached into the box and pulled out another packet. "Map of the mine system," he said, unfolding a detailed diagram showing multiple tunnels and chambers. "This place is much bigger than what we've seen." Luna found a leather journal, its pages filled with careful records of ore extracted, expenses shared, and profits split equally between the two partners. The final entry was dated March 3, 1897. "Joseph forced to relocate to reservation. Will hold his share in trust until his return." TM, he really did intend to make it right, Jack said softly. "The road to broken promises is paved with good intentions." Luna replied sadly. "But look at this." She pulled out a letter written in Thomas's handwriting, but addressed to my descendants. Jack read over her shoulder. "If you are reading this, then perhaps the time has come to heal the wound I created through my cowardice. Joseph Begay was my truest friend and most honorable partner. I have done him a great wrong, and I fear I lack the courage to make it right while I live. I pray that my family and his will find a way to honor the partnership that should have lasted forever. The lightning strike belongs to both bloodlines equally. Thomas Morrison, December 1905. The cave fell silent, except for the distant sound of water dripping somewhere in the depths. Jack felt the weight of generations pressing down on him, not just the guilt of his great-grandfather's betrayal, but the responsibility to finally make things right. "Luna," he said carefully, "if we move forward with this, it's going to be complicated. Legal issues, environmental permits, mining rights, tribal law, ... I know," Luna said. "But my grandmother always said that the right path is rarely the easy path." She looked at him with those deep, wise eyes. "Are you willing to try? To honor this partnership the way it should have been honored all along?" Jack thought about his failing ranch, his empty house, the loneliness that had been eating away at him for 2 years. Then he thought about Luna dancing in the lightning, about the joy and purpose he'd felt since she'd entered his life. This wasn't just about the mine, it was about building something meaningful with someone who had already changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. "Yes," he said firmly. "But we do this right. Legal, ethical, with respect for both families and the land." Luna's smile was radiant. "My cousin David is a lawyer specializing in tribal rights and mining law, and I know people who can help us navigate the environmental requirements. It won't be easy, but it's possible," Jack finished, as they carefully repacked the documents and prepared to leave the mine. Jack felt a profound shift in his understanding of his place in the world. He wasn't just a failed rancher carrying on a family tradition. He was part of a larger story that stretched back generations and forward into a future he was only beginning to imagine. "Jack," Luna said as they emerged from the cave into the bright afternoon sun, "there's something else I need to tell you." "What?" Luna looked down at her hands, suddenly shy. "Last night, when I was dancing in the storm, I wasn't just following the lightning randomly. I was looking for you." Jack stared at her. "Looking for me?" "My grandmother told me that when the time was right, I'd find the Morrison descendant who was ready to heal the old wound. She said I'd know him because he'd be brave enough to follow me into the storm instead of trying to drag me out of it." Jack felt his heart skip. "You were testing me." "Not testing," Luna said softly, recognizing the person who would honor this partnership had to be someone who understood that some journeys require faith, not just logic. As they rode back toward the ranch in the golden light of late afternoon, Jack realized that Luna Beggett had given him more than just the location of a silver mine. She'd given him a chance to be part of something larger than himself, to heal wounds that went back generations, and to build a future based on honor and partnership, rather than isolation and regret. The lightning strike mine had been waiting for over a century for the right moment to reveal its secrets. As Jack glanced at Luna, riding beside him, her hair gleaming in the desert sun, he understood that the mine wasn't the only treasure that had been waiting to be discovered. The way home 6 months later, Jack stood at the edge of the lightning strike mine's new entrance, watching a crew of environmental engineers take their final measurements. The winter sun cast sharp shadows across the canyon, but the air was warming toward spring, filled with the promise of new beginnings. The legal process had been every bit as complex as Jack had expected. Months of paperwork, negotiations between tribal authorities and county officials, environmental impact studies, and heritage preservation requirements. But Luna's cousin David had been as skilled as she'd promised. And slowly, carefully, they'd built a framework for reopening the mine that honored both families' rights and the land's sacred nature. "The final permits came through this morning," Luna said, approaching him with a manila envelope in her hands. She'd taken to wearing her hair in a single braid down her back, and the simple style made her look both professional and beautifully traditional. Jack accepted the envelope, but his attention was focused on Luna's face. Over the past 6 months, he'd watched her navigate complex legal negotiations with grace and intelligence, handle media attention from the discovery of the historical mine, and manage her family's expectations about the partnership. She'd proven herself to be not just wise beyond her years, but incredibly capable. "So we're really doing this," Jack said. "We're really doing this," Luna confirmed. 50-50 partners, just like our ancestors intended. The initial geological surveys had confirmed what the original documents suggested. The lightning strike mine contained one of the richest silver deposits ever found in New Mexico. Conservative estimates suggested enough ore to generate substantial income for both families for decades to come. But more importantly for Jack, the process of reopening the mine had brought purpose back to his life. He'd spent the winter learning about sustainable mining practices, tribal law, and environmental stewardship. His ranch was still struggling, but now it felt like a temporary challenge rather than a permanent defeat. "There's someone I want you to meet," Luna said, gesturing toward a pickup truck that had just pulled up to their temporary office trailer. A woman emerged from the truck, blonde, professional looking, maybe 40 years old. It took Jack a moment to recognize her. "Sarah," Jack said, shocked. His ex-wife approached with a slightly nervous smile he remembered from their early days together. "Hello, Jack. Luna called me. She thought I should see what you've been up to." Jack glanced at Luna, who was tactfully examining some paperwork to give them privacy. "I don't understand." "She told me about the mine, about the partnership with her family," Sarah said. "But more than that, she told me about how you've changed, how you've found something to care about again." Sarah looked around the canyon, taking in the carefully planned operation, the environmental protections, the respect for the land's cultural significance. "This isn't the same man who was slowly disappearing into failure and bitterness. This is the Jack I fell in love with, the one who believed in building something meaningful." Jack felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of him had hoped for this moment, had dreamed of Sarah recognizing his worth again. But another part, a larger part, realized that he no longer needed her validation. "I'm glad you think so," Jack said carefully. "But Sarah, I'm not the same man you left. This experience has changed me in ways I'm still discovering." Sarah nodded, and Jack could see both sadness and acceptance in her eyes. "I know." Luna made that clear. "She also made it clear that you two have something special." Jack looked over at Luna, who was trying to appear busy, but was obviously listening to every word. Over the past 6 months, their partnership had deepened into something neither of them had quite named yet. There were moments working late over legal documents, celebrating small victories, supporting each other through frustrating setbacks, when Jack felt a connection with Luna that he'd never experienced with anyone else. "We do," Jack said simply. Sarah smiled a genuine expression without bitterness. "Then, I'm happy for you. Both of you." She paused. "Emma would like to see you, Jack. She's proud of what you're doing here. Maybe during her spring break." "I'd love that," Jack said, meaning it. After Sarah left, Luna approached Jack with a question in her eyes. "No regrets," Jack said before she could ask. "That part of my life is over. Has been for a while, I think. I was just too stubborn to admit it." Luna smiled and took his hand, a gesture that had become natural over the months they'd spent working together. "My grandmother used to say that some people come into our lives to teach us what we don't want, and others come to show us what we do want." "And which am I?" Jack asked. "You're the person who followed me into a lightning storm," Luna said softly. "You're the partner who honored a promise made over a century ago. You're the man who's helped me heal something I didn't even know was broken in my family." Jack squeezed her hand, feeling the calluses she'd developed from months of hard work. Alongside him, "Luna, I need to ask you something. This partnership, it's going to make us both wealthy. You could do anything, go anywhere. Are you sure you want to tie your future to this place?" "To me," Luna laughed, same joyous sound he'd first heard in the storm. "Jack Morrison, do you really think I'm here just for the silver?" "No," Jack said, realizing the truth as he spoke it. "You're here because this is where you belong. Where we belong. The lightning brought us together for a reason," Luna said. "Not just to find the mine, but to find each other. My grandmother always said that some partnerships are meant to last forever. Not just business partnerships, but life partnerships." Jack felt his heart racing as Luna's meaning became clear. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying that I love you, Jack Morrison. I love your stubborn integrity, your willingness to do the right thing even when it's hard, the way you've embraced my family and my culture with such respect. I love the man you are when you're not hiding from the world." Jack pulled Luna into his arms, kissing her with all the passion and gratitude that had been building for months. When they broke apart, both were breathless. "I love you too," Jack said. "More than I thought I could ever love anyone. You've given me back my life. Luna, you've shown me how to be the man I was always supposed to be." As the sun set over the canyon, painting the rock walls in shades of gold and crimson, Jack realized that his journey had come full circle. A year ago, he'd been a lonely, defeated man slowly disappearing into the isolation of his failing ranch. Now he was part of something larger and more meaningful than he'd ever imagined possible. The lightning strike mine would provide financial security for both families. But more importantly, it had provided something Jack hadn't even known he was missing: a sense of purpose. A connection to history, and a partnership built on mutual respect and deep love. "So what happens now?" Jack asked, holding Luna close, as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "Now we build something beautiful," Luna said. "A mine that honors the land. A business that benefits both our communities. A life together that would make our ancestors proud." "Our ancestors," Jack repeated, liking the sound of that. "Thomas and Joseph would be pleased, I think." "They would," Luna agreed. "The friendship they started is finally complete." As they walked back toward Jack's truck, hands intertwined, Jack thought about the strange twist of fate that had brought Luna into his life. A chance encounter during a lightning storm had led to the discovery of a lost mine, the healing of a generational wound, and the beginning of a love story he never could have imagined. The desert wind carried the scent of sage and the promise of rain, reminding Jack of that first night when Luna had danced her way into his heart. As they drove back toward the ranch, now Jack realized that he had finally found his way home. Not just to a place, but to a purpose. Not just to a partner, but to a future filled with the kind of meaning he'd been searching for his entire life. The lonely rancher who had found an Apache girl chasing lightning had discovered that sometimes the most important journeys begin when you're brave enough to follow someone else's dream. Luna squeezed his hand as they pulled into the ranch yard, where the lights of home waited to welcome them back from another day of building their shared future. The lightning strike mine had given them silver, but their partnership had given them something far more precious: a love that honored the past while creating something entirely new. In the distance, thunder rumbled across the desert, and Jack smiled. He was no longer afraid of storms. He had learned to dance in the lightning, Just like the remarkable woman who had taught him that some treasures are worth chasing, even when you don't know where they'll lead you. The story of Jack Morrison and Luna Begay was just beginning, but it was already a testament to the power of healing old wounds, honoring forgotten promises, and having the courage to follow your heart into the unknown. Sometimes the way home isn't a destination. It's a partnership that makes every step of the journey meaningful. As they walked toward the house together, Jack knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they had faced everything else, as partners, as lovers, and as two people who had found in each other the missing pieces of their own souls. The lightning strike mine would make them wealthy, but the lightning that had brought them together had already made them rich in all the ways that truly mattered. What did you think of Jack and Luna's incredible journey from that first lightning storm to finding love and healing generational wounds? If this story touched your heart, smash that like button and let me know in the comments which moment resonated with you most. Was it their first meeting in the storm, discovering the hidden mine, or their beautiful ending together? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our powerful stories of love, redemption, and second chances. Share this with someone who believes in the power of healing old wounds and following your heart into the unknown. What story should we tell next? Drop your suggestions below. I love hearing from you. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most beautiful journeys begin when we're brave enough to dance in the lightning.